fatted frogs or kids with leukemia. Nuclear power ain't fit for a dog. The sun done give us all we need to make this country run. But that nuclear power's got us fussing and fighting, and I do believe it's time we was done. No nukes. Good morning, Toledo. And good afternoon, Columbus. And hello to those of you listening on the internet, wherever and whenever you are. My name is Joe DeMar, and I'm here with my wonderful co-host,
Rebecca Wood.
And together we're about to craft an in-studio version of For a Green Future. And you'll have to excuse me, I'm a little bit out of breath.
We almost got to start with my short segment.
Because I went and, you get out of practice. We were out of the studio for 2 full weeks there. So now we're back, and I forgot my cell phone in the car.
He never does that.
Right, which had to literally just sprint back out to the car, get it. And the reason it's so important to have the cell phone is because anytime during this next hour, you can text in at 419-973-5841. And we'd be happy to take your texts on any issue dealing with ecology and the environment. Because this is For a Green Future. And For a Green Future is a show all about ecology and the environment, how it affects you, your wealth, your health, your happiness, the wealth and health and happiness of your friends and family and pets and gardens and the birds and the bees and pretty much everything.
This would be an example of how sprinting to the car and back in 45 seconds affects your well-being and whatnot. Well, what Joe's doing right now.
I am kind of happy I was able to do it.
He did it. He did it by gum. I was all ready to go. And,
yeah, we were halfway through the theme song, and I was like, oh, no,
several seconds to go.
So, of course, the other way you can join us, you could text at 419-973-5841. And you can also call anytime, 877-909-1007. That's the magic of having an in-studio show. We get to talk to you folks, and looking forward to it. Got a pretty good show lined up for you today. Rebecca and I are going to chat with you for the first 15 minutes or so here. Then we have an interview with a fella. And no, I'm not making this up. His name is Farrell Moose. And Farrell Moose is a professor at Central Carolina Community College.
Which implies that he's even wilder than a normal moose, who are not really that tame.
Right. I have yet to meet a tame moose. And Mr. Moose is going to be talking to us about their sustainable agriculture program. They have a really nice one.
I'm sorry, I was okay until you said Mr. Moose like he was a cartoon character. Mr. Moose is going to be talking to us. Great.
Yeah, he will. Well, he was a beloved character. So.
Right, yeah. Okay.
Then after that, we'll hear from our advertisers and patrons. And then Rebecca has a little information to part with
impart
us. Thank you.
To you.
I know, I got that partly right.
Yeah, you did, yeah.
Part of it was parting, but it's imparting, yes.
Right.
She has some wisdom to impart, some information to impart to us. And then...
more like some over-the-top craziness that the NRC has come up with again. Yet again, they've topped themselves this time.
Oh, can't wait. And then we'll have some ecological news stories. And again, hopefully at some point we'll hear from you folks, either at texting at 419-973-5841 or calling at 877-909-1007. And this is our special Halloween episode. So happy Halloween, everyone. I just wanted to mention a little bit about Halloween there. It was started back, it was a Celtic tradition. It was called Samhain.
Maybe actually pronounce it something like Samhain.
Oh, you're right.
Weirdly.
Samhain, you're right. It looks like Samhain.
I don't know why they bother to spell it so stupid. Sorry, I'm very tired.
Well, the Celts are kind of, the Celts kind of do things their own way.
They do, yeah.
But they had a festival at this time of the year where their
New Year actually started on November 1st, and so this is kind of the pagan New Year's Eve.
It was the kind of thing where at the time, everybody would break up all summer to like go and herd their cattle and things, and in the fall they would come back together, and they discovered that a lot of people had died over the summer, and they had not, their loved ones in other camps had not heard about it. So that's how the custom. It was harvest time, so and you'd kill off the cattle that were too skinny to make it through the winter, and you already knew that. So then that's where the sacrifice came thing. The sacrifice, yummy burger, there's a fine line, There's and then they'd have a sort of big funeral for everybody who died over the summer, and that's how the custom of it being associated with speaking to dead loved ones came about.
Right. And so they'd have a huge bonfire that night, and people would dress up in costumes. And they thought that, this night, October 31st, that the dead and the living, that line kind of got blurred a bit. So they wanted to sort of, make sure that everything stayed separate. And, And
there's a real bright light on this side. So you knew where the light was.
This is the living side here.
Right.
We've got a big bonfire going.
So you can tell.
Right. And, it's really cool having bonfires at night. And, when I was reading about that, I couldn't help thinking I had an experience way back when I was a Boy Scout, and I was a counselor at a summer camp. Took a bunch of scouts out for their wilderness survival test. And for that test, what you have to do is actually make your own shelter and spend the night in it, way out in the wilderness. And unfortunately, while we were out doing that night, we got hit by one of the worst thunderstorms in that region's history. It was
a real test.
Yeah, it was like 6 inches of rain overnight. You could survive
that. It was literally a survival test. Were you going to survive or not?
Right.
Yeah.
And so, needless to say, most of the shelters everybody had made had failed.
No.
Out of like a dozen kids, 2 of them had cooperated and built a shelter that actually stayed dry the whole time.
Cool.
But as the adult on this adventure, I had to make sure, I had to go around and make sure everybody wasn't like getting hypothermia.
Right.
And most of them were on their way. They were like,
oh dear.
My shelter's leaking. It's like, okay. So what we did is we brought them back to where we had a fire, and we actually built that fire up so big, it was huge,
everybody dried out.
That everybody, even though it was pouring, the fire kept going, and we all stayed warm and survived the night.
Yeah, wow.
And then we had to, praise the 2 who had made a really good shelter. I was envious, but there's something about a big bonfire at night, and through most of human history, we have had night. We've had actual darkness.
Right.
And I just wanted to mention the reason I haven't been around for 2 weeks is that we went, my wife and I went traveling, and we had we have a little thing we do every year in Washington, D.C. about this time of the year. And then we went on to visit a friend of ours in Virginia who lives way out in the boonies, and it appears I got the impression that most people in Virginia actually live like way out in the boonies, down a back road, and it was super dark, and you could see, like at night, I was able to see the Pleiades, the 7 sisters, and
I got into this conversation online with somebody on this rationality and science site had done a thing saying about, well, I've done away with constellations. I'm just calling them all the swarm of bees constellations, because we don't need constellations anymore. They're stupid. They have to do with astrology, so they're stupid. But except for, I think, don't astronomers still kind of use them a little bit when they don't have their electron microscope on?
Oh yeah, they absolutely do.
I think they're a thing in astronomy. Like, if you're an astronomer and you're sitting in your backyard having a beer and you see something out of place up there, you're going to get in your car and go to the lab. Am I right?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, so that scientist is ignoring the scientific fact that humans use.
Oh, it's not a scientist. It's just some smart alecky atheist.
Some smart aleck. All right.
Which, atheists are pretty good, I think, actually, generally. But these days, like they think stupid stuff.
Yeah. Well, humans need some context. Humans need to be able to have a story or paint a picture as a mnemonic, to help you.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it's perfectly valid. But out there in the backwoods of Virginia,
we don't need to get rid of looking for any kind of patterns in the sky because it was at some point associated with religion.
Right. So
Actually, not rational at all, or well informed.
Right, true. So I got I could see 5 out of the 7 of the Pleiades, of the 7 sisters. It was that dark out there.
Oh, neat.
But around here, I walked with my dog this morning well before dawn, and the Pleiades were just this little smudge. I couldn't make out any of the individual stars because...
I should explain that I'm terrible at seeing constellations. Sometimes I can do Orion. I still cannot do the Great Dipper, and it all kind of looks like a swarm of bees to me.
Yeah. Well, it's
full truth here.
It's funny. That's a skill. For a long time I couldn't pick out anything like you but the Dipper.
Right.
But over the years, well, and of course Orion, you can't miss Orion. Over the years, it's like now that's Sagittarius, and that's the Pleiades, obviously, and Cygnus. Over the years, it's like slowly been sinking into my brain.
Nice,
so
good.
As I get older, I actually can pick out more constellations. And of course, saw the Milky Way, which is wonderful. One thing that I did see down there that I wanted to remark on is bamboo.
Ooh.
The first time I saw bamboo was in growing wild down south, was in D.C. about 20 years ago when we were going down there to visit, and I was like, hey, is that bamboo just growing in a lot? But bamboo has become one of the worst invasive species in the south.
Like kudzu used to be. How is it doing? How are the two battling it out, the kudzu and the bamboo?
I did see a couple plots where it was like bamboo versus kudzu.
Wow.
Yeah, it's like,
I would think that the kudzu could just grow right over the bamboo.
Well, they kind of wrap around each other. And bamboo is, because it's a grass, is flimsy, so it's kind of hard to really get a good hold of it. So they're, they were going at it.
Interesting. So we'll see who wins.
Yeah. But, it was brought in as an ornamental back in the 1880s.
Right.
And it was, for a long time, it wasn't listed as a true invasive, quote unquote true invasive, because it only seeds every 7 or 10 years. But it expands via roots by the rhizome, and so once you get a plot established, it sends out roots in every direction, and it's just another example of a...
So the way to eradicate it is basically just rip up everything that's growing in the ground.
Right. Well, they say if you keep cutting it back and never let it send up stalks, eventually the root will die.
But that's a lot of persistence.
But you gotta, and bamboo is very persistent too.
Yes.
But it's kind of strange because it's just it's the same stuff you see growing in Southeast Asia, and when I was in Pittsburgh, North Carolina, that was one of the places we visited. It looked like Vietnam.
Wow, it's funny that it actually took so long for it to get started, if anything.
Well, that's because it's mainly doing it by the root, so it's not getting, the seeds aren't so much getting transported all over the way most of the invasive species are.
Right.
But it's here now. I mean, and I actually saw it coming back. We stopped at Athens, Ohio, and there it was growing along the riverbank. So, so it's coming. So bamboo is coming. So it's just another example of how badly we could mess things up with,
if we really try, yes.
If we really try. And another example also in Pittsburgh, I spent a fair bit of time there, and I wanted to mention that the town of Pittsburgh, their municipal water supply is contaminated with PFAS.
Uh-oh.
And so it's a huge problem. We stayed with some wonderful friends there who put us up for like 3 days, and they were like, oh, use the filter.
Okay.
They didn't say use the filter because of PFAS. People just don't mention it. It's just not talked about for the most part, and you don't bring it up. But it's there, and it's real, and it's a threat to the development of the whole town. So and most of the PFAS in the world was put there by the federal government around Air Force bases. That's where the biggest sources of contamination are. So, so the federal government should be spending some money cleaning it up.
They should.
That's my opinion. Another thing that happened to me while I was there in Pittsburgh, I was walking our puppy, and I was walking on the grounds of the Central Carolina Community College there in Pittsburgh, and I saw all these happy, smiling college kids working in these fields, harvesting, like beans and peppers and things like that. And I was like, oh, what's going on there? So I walked in and just started asking around, and it turns out they have a really incredible sustainable agriculture program in this community college. And I was lucky enough to be able to get an interview with the head of it, a fellow by the name, as we said, Mr. Farrell Moose. And so, Josh, if we're ready, we can go ahead and play that interview.
All right.
And I have to say, this was recorded in a parking lot with with my cell phone on the car between us because he was concerned about COVID. So
Authentic background noises.
So there may be some background noise, but just bear with us. I think you'll like the interview.
All right. Well, thanks for coming on For Agreed Future. Could we start with your name and title?
Yeah, my name is Farrell Moose, believe it or not, and I'm farm manager and instructor for the Sustainable Ag program at Central Carolina Community College.
All right. Yeah, I happened to be walking by and saw your setup here. You got quite a beautiful little farm plot here on the campus.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I have a lot of help. You know, it's a lot of volunteers. Abundance draws people.
Yeah, speaking of abundance, these plants look really healthy, but you're doing it all organically, right?
Yeah, the farm is certified organic, and so we use no non-organic inputs. Our major source of fertility is cover cropping, a system where we grow plants to incorporate into the soil that have specific qualities to improve fertility.
And this program's been going for
25 years or so. 25. I think the 25th anniversary is coming up. It started. This region has always been lucky to have a good group of small to medium-sized sustainable farmers, and the program began because there was such interest in that method of growing that the farmers were having to become teachers at their farm, and so a group of them got together and began the program.
Ah, cool. And so students that come here can get an associate's in what exactly?
In sustainable agriculture, or a sustainable agriculture certificate, where they're also able to transfer to various universities with their credits.
Well, this seems like a pretty ambitious program for a community college. I mean, the sustainable agriculture is just part of sort of a larger picture for your college.
Yeah, the college has a sustainability program which includes several different departments, green building. Forgive me, but I've been here about 3 months, so I may not be able to rattle off all the individual departments. But it is a part of a push towards sustainable ideas in terms of living in general.
Right. That's cool. That's one of the things we focus on in For Agreed Future.
Cool.
I noticed you got solar panels on some of your outbuildings here.
Yeah. There's grid-tied solar here, as well as solar hot water for our wash area. The way grid-tied works is we don't have any batteries, but we do a good job of supplementing the electricity we use with our coolers, our walk-in coolers, and refrigerators, and stuff like that.
Oh, that's great. And so if a student comes and joins your program, what can they expect? Would they expect to get their hands dirty or spend most of the time in the classroom?
Absolutely. Most of the courses have a lecture and a lab component, and so they're really getting both sides of the picture. But really getting out, when I say lab, the students do the growing here. So we try to plan the courses so that they fit the pattern of the growing year in North Carolina. So that students can see all aspects of, managing a small farm, and so they get a pretty rounded look at the scale of agriculture.
That's great. And so, some of your students have gone on to become organic farmers themselves?
Absolutely, yeah. Some have gone on to start their own farm. The program was designed to give them the tools to be agricultural entrepreneurs. A lot of them have gone on to work within different programs in sustainable agriculture. There's a great network of non-government organizations and places that are helping to keep knowledge alive and to further knowledge about sustainable agriculture in the Southeast. And so students from here have gone on to do a range of things. My wife is a graduate of the program from almost 15 years ago now, and has gone on to be the communications director and now the executive director of an organization that certifies farms in let's see, England, South Africa, Canada, and the United States, called A Greener World.
What are the plants that you're growing here this year?
Well, there's a range of them. We've just gone through the transition from late summer to fall. Right in front of us is the end of late summer, so you can see some kind of skeletal okra, basil, the end of some winter squash, which is a very long day crop. It's been there since early June. Sweet potato leaves. And the block next to it, you can see the beginnings of most of our fall greens and root crops. So spinach, lettuce, beets, chard, then for herbs, cilantro, dill, parsley, a range of cool weather crops. In the houses, or the peppers, the end of the year peppers.
In the greenhouses?
Greenhouses. And then ginger and turmeric are those broad-leafed crops that are tall in the back, kind of blowing in the breeze right now. So the houses give us a little bit more control of our climate at the beginning of the end of the year. Keep frosts out, allow us to grow a different range of crops.
Now this year, though, you're saying cool weather crops. It's not terribly cool right at the moment. We're
sure.
Yeah. What do you think of this year's growing cycle?
Every year is different, and so it's kind of a challenge. Especially September tends to vary pretty wildly in North Carolina, and so you just have to be prepared to work hard to keep things irrigated, and you have to be prepared to throw a lot against the wall and see what sticks. I tend to, like I say, this is my first fall here.
Right.
I had a farm at home and managed to CSA for 15 years. But I tend to, in August and September, throw a lot against the wall and see what sticks. Sometimes we get some cool weather or a hurricane comes through and we're able to get things up and going early. And sometimes it's a real fight.
Yeah, you mentioned your CSA. Is that a big part of the program?
Yeah. It certainly is. This farm has had varying size CSAs over the last 20 years. We started one again this fall, 24, 25 members. It's not really a financial concern, but it gives the farm a scale to plant to. So we have some sense of, our market, even though it's a manufactured market. Most of our members are actually student volunteers. So they get a chance to kind of see more of the production side of growing. The courses, the lab and lectures, there's a lot of information to impart there. And so the tasks tend to get, it's more demonstrative. But when students are able to volunteer here, they can really see the kind of scale to market of getting crops harvested and in the cooler for folks to eat.
And the business end of it's a big part of your program, isn't it?
Yeah. We want to make sure that the students have the tools they need to be viable entrepreneurs or viable parts of other farms, and that's a big part of it.
So as we're standing here in the parking lot, I'm noticing a lot of birds sort of going in and out of your garden. Is that like part of your plan? Is getting help with the insects from the birds?
That's actually something that I'm personally really interested in. So the kind of broad term for that is ecosystem services. There are a range of things that a farm has available if it's near to a functioning ecology. So birds are great. Most birds are insectivores. They may switch over to eating seeds in the winter, but most bird species in our region actually eat bugs most of the time. So there's good solid studies on having a production area in proximity to tree lines, because birds like to forage within a certain amount of feet from their safety area. So I'm certain that they're helping us keep up with insect problems.
Yeah, you're surrounded by pines here, some deciduous trees all the way around your plot here. It's nice.
Yeah, it's springing up. I've seen pictures of the program from 25 years ago, and it's amazing. In North Carolina, you leave land alone for any amount of time, and it's going to become a forest in a hurry. I think the majority of these trees are less than 30 years old.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's quicker than it would have happened up north, definitely.
The southeast will reforest.
Yeah, nice. Okay, so what makes you interested in organic farming? What you said you had to farm for a while yourself. What drew you to it?
Well, I mean, kind of a range of things. I'm more of I'm noticing that there's people that are very interested in organic production because they're very conscious of what they put in their bodies, and that's part of my driver. But I'm more conscious. I love to make land productive. I like to be in the center of productive land. My family is a farming family from Cabarrus County, North Carolina. Okay. And for me personally, managing land in a manner that is productive for a community is very fulfilling. Furthermore, organic farming and being able to do stuff on a dense scale is really going to be important for the future, because you don't have to have that much land or even that much of a garden to really supplement your diet.
Yeah, and you're not spending the energy bringing this food that you're distributing in your CSA from another continent.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. You do have to learn to. One thing about having a CSA is you get to meet a lot of people and their likes and dislikes, and you do have to learn to eat with the seasons. And sometimes that can be difficult for folks that are used to, sourcing their fruit from Paraguay in the dead of winter. But it's actually really fulfilling too. I mean, you can eat tomatoes in North Carolina until you're absolutely sick of tomatoes. And right at the time when you're sick of tomatoes, you can't grow them anymore anyway.
Okay.
And right about the time you start craving them again, you can grow them. Your body actually operates in that way. You can fill up on something and take a break. You don't have to have it all the time.
Right. Well, I just wanted to remark again on how healthy your plants are. I'm looking at your pepper plants there. They're 4 feet tall and just loaded with what variety is that of peppers?
In the front there's a variety of a little sweet pepper called a lunchbox pepper. And then to the right, there's an Italian pepper that's a frying pepper. It's got a little bit of heat, and the name translates to horn of the bull because it's kind of a horn-shaped frying pepper. You think about the kind of pepper that you'd like fry with onions to do a pepper steak or something like that. That's a similar taste.
I am thinking about that right now. Now that you mentioned it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's pretty much what I was curious about when I was walking by and saw you folks out here in the garden, in the plot here.
Very cool. I appreciate your interest.
Yeah.
We hope to get our program's mission out there as broadly as possible.
All right. Thanks.
And thank you for listening. So, what do you think about organic farming? Some people think it's a fad. Other people think it's the future of agriculture. Other people are like, you can't grow stuff without chemicals. People never did that before in history, did they? Yeah. So, but it was a pleasant interview, and I have to, again, apologize for the quality. Usually I get to edit these interviews first, but we were traveling, and I didn't have my equipment with me, but it was a good interview. What do you think? Give us a call at 877-909-1007. Okay, and now it's one of my favorite parts of the show, and that is when we get to talk about our advertisers and sponsors. For Green Futures, brought to you by the Wood County Park District. The Wood County Park District is a natural resources conservation agency. They protect natural spaces, maintain quality green spaces, provide engaging programming, and they teach people to love and respect nature. They restore wildlife habitats, and they lead people on outdoor adventures. Wood County Parks protects natural spaces in Wood County for all to enjoy, from 8 a.m. to 30 minutes past sunset every day of the year. And there's several ways you can get a hold of them. One is to call them at 419-353-1897. That's 419-353-1897. You can also go to their website at wcparks.org, and you can download their app. They have a nifty app. Go to any app store and search for WC Parks. And of course, they're on all the social media, Facebook, Instagram, etc., etc., etc. And they're doing a whole bunch of stuff in connection with the fall right now. They've got programs out at their farm. They've got, costume programs. They've got, they're doing all kinds of fun stuff right now. So it's a good time to check up on the Wood County Park District. All right, and then we're also brought to you by our patrons. And our patrons are wonderful people who have gone to patreon.com, that's Patreon, and they searched for a green future, and lo and behold, our page popped up, and they signed up for a little monthly contribution that matches their budget, matches what they're able to do without feeling any financial pain. We don't, the green future, we make this point over and over again, is not a painful future. So,
Yes.
so you don't have to give till it hurts, but it would help us immensely were you to give something. And so you just sign up for whatever level you want, and every month a little bit comes out of your account and comes over to us, and that's how we stay on the air. So that's patreon.com, and search for A Green Future. Okay, and now it's time for Rebecca's segment. Yay!
So, yeah, it's Halloween, so I thought I could do something scary, and I found something.
That's appropriate, yeah.
It has to do with the NRC, the Nuclear Regulatory Commission. Actually, I wanted to do this because last weekend I was watching the critter shows, I call them, that come on Saturdays, like, ooh, baby animals, ooh, travel show,
Oh, yeah.
But there's one about wildlife where this guy was going to some alligator sanctuary located around the Turkey Point nuclear plant in Florida, near Miami.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and he was all, oh, it's so beautiful. It's the synthesis and cooperation of producing clean energy for people and saving alligators. And right away I thought, well, item one, I think they were so generous to the alligators and didn't make them leave, because item one, you can't make alligators leave. People would have done it if they could.
Good point, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, item two, I'm guessing you can't really locate anything else around a nuclear plant for safety reasons, both to the people and to the nuclear plant.
Well, the big thing is alligators can't sue you if their children get leukemia.
Yeah, that too, right. And yeah, nobody likes alligators. Juries are prejudiced against them, no doubt, They eat people sometimes, but
yeah.
Just every once in a while, but But yeah, so I thought I would look up this Turkey Point nuclear plant and see how wonderful and safe and clean it really is. And yeah, I found this article from August 24th of this year in the Miami Herald. So the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, which is apparently mostly owned by the nuclear industry, just granted the world's first 80-year operating license to Turkey Point.
Wait, you mean 80 more years?
80 more years, yes. Yeah, it was never intended. It's Cold War technology. It's not adapted for modern computing. Mm-hmm. It's run by weird computers that are as big as a room or something. I don't know, something strange. But yeah, it's Cold War technology. It was never meant to operate even this long, much less for another 80 years.
Oh my lord.
So yeah, in the past year, it turns out that 3 staff members were fired for forging safety inspections at the Turkey Point nuclear plant.
Oh,
which you'd think they would not need to do if it was so clean and all, and safe for the alligators and things. And then there were 4 unplanned shutdowns, leading to the unprecedented move of their safety rating actually being downgraded by the NRC. And a thing that only it has happened to 13 out of 100 plants nationally, and it was built in 1970 by Florida Power Light. The cooling system is currently leaking into Miami's drinking water. It's happening. It's not even under dispute. And the NRC, the reason they extended the license is the NRC has accepted safety planning estimates for 1 foot rise in sea level, whereas the federal government foresees that there's going to be a 6 foot rise in sea level. But the Florida Power Light says, oh no, we looked at it and it looks fine, it's only going to be 1 foot. So they could not at all be in any way prejudiced or be, thinking with their self-interest goggles there. So yeah, by conservative government estimates, it's going to be underwater. The entire plant is going to be underwater by 2040, and then it will go on running for another 12 years. Miami waterkeepers was appealing this decision when they made the ruling. Somehow they didn't wait for the judicial process to continue. They just were like, another 8 years is fine.
Right.
So yeah, all the at the beginning of the pandemic, it was like, oh my gosh, it's the end of the world. Now we can. Is it going to be more like Mad Max or The Handmaid's Tale? Or no, it's actually going to be like the Mad Adam series by Margaret Atwood. where
I'm not familiar with that one. But.
Yeah, it's basically the world after an environmental disaster, and a lot of things have been genetically engineered for better or worse, and just large area the countries are just kind of poisoned by the ecological disasters that we've created, basically.
Well, I'm thinking that by the time it goes under, by the time the ocean rises up and covers the plant, most of the plant's output will be to run the pumps to keep the plant from going underwater.
Right.
Yeah, that's more than a little crazy there. But the NRC has a remarkable history of really, really bad estimates, and then just sticking to those bad estimates no matter what the reality actually turns out to be.
See, I'm gonna have to watch some slasher films to forget that tonight.
Yeah, so
some little cheerier,
Well, thanks for that information.
Pretend the problems in the world are the result of individual people, madmen with chainsaws.
Yeah, and I would,
as opposed to collective madmen with banks.
And in all the NRC things I've seen for relicensing and stuff, they never estimate the possibility of guys wearing hockey masks and chainsaws attacking the plant. That's a possibility.
Exactly, yeah.
But, just look at all the movies about it. So.
There you go.
All right, well, so on to some other ecological news, and of course plenty of time for a call at 877-909-1007 or a text at 419-973-5841. Love to hear from you. First thing we're going to talk about is Biden's Build Back Better, or Nuclear Joe's plan, as I talk about it. Our friends at NEARS have given me a little update. Unfortunately, they're going to double the production tax credit for nuclear power plants. In other words, every kilowatt hour they generate is they're going to get some money from the government. Isn't that? Well, they're going to get a tax credit technically, which means the companies that own them won't have to pay taxes on all that, and that's going to double up to $60 billion right now is where it's set, or that's the latest we've heard from them. Maybe it'll get cut again, but it was up into the hundreds of billions, and then it was down last week. Time we reported on it, it was down into the 30 billions, but now it's doubled. It's back up into the 60 billions. And I just wanted to mention something about the whole Build Back Better budget process that if you're someone who listens to the news, this is all you've been pummeled with for the past
And the discourse is all, those terrible Republicans, they won't let us have child care.
Yeah.
Nobody's talking about the nuclear component of it.
No, it's not even getting mentioned. And it's the terrible Republicans, and it's the terrible Joe Manchin, and the terrible Kristen Sinema,
right,
who are the Democrats that are doing
the designated Democrats to oppose that.
And exactly. And that's what I wanted to mention, because I wanted to remind everybody, Obamacare. We went through exactly this same process with Obamacare way back. I don't even know how many years ago that was now. 12? I don't know. But people who wanted socialized medicine, people who wanted the
single payer
health care, the sane policy that every other industrialized country in the world has, really thought that Obama was going to give us that. Unfortunately, what they didn't know, and what was reported afterwards, is that before he took office, he went to the insurance companies and made a deal that pretty much said, this is what Obamacare is going to be. And then part of what wasn't in Obama's promise to the health insurance companies was the public option.
And guess what? People are still dying because of that decision. People who have jobs but don't pay enough. There's a guy that I know and have common friends with who has congestive heart failure, which was made much worse, or possibly started, but because his lungs were damaged in the Black Lives Matter riots in Toledo.
Oh wow. That's terrible.
And he's been in and out of the Cleveland Clinic. He's still running fundraisers to pay for his care. He bounced a check this month, and now he's talking about not pursuing treatment anymore because it's just too draining on several levels, and part of that is the financial stuff.
Wow. And if we lived in a country that had single payer health insurance like every other industrialized nation,
That'd be one less thing on his mind for
he
sure.
would probably already have gotten the treatment they needed, and he'd probably be on recovery right now instead of looking at not taking treatment.
I don't know, maybe not. He's still getting procedures, but they're not working. But
well, okay,
I think it's at least part of his decision not to keep getting treatment, not to keep trying to do that because he just can't afford it, and it's
right.
it's a lot when you're sick to also have to pursue the fundraising thing.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly, and that's the kind of thing that happens to Americans, and that's why sometimes people from other countries are terrified to visit America because they're afraid they're going to get sick here,
exactly,
and have to pay for it themselves. But the point I wanted to make about that whole process, the reason I brought that all up,
and he's not alone. You're always seeing these online fundraisers for my insurance won't pay for this important thing that I need.
Oh, from everyone from babies up to 90-year-olds are. So
people are always telling me, oh, you should be happy because Obama gave you health care. Well, what about the people that I've been one of those people that that was left out.
But okay, to bring it back to the current thing.
Okay.
Yeah, he had made the deal with the health insurance companies. It didn't include the public option, and so what happened during the quote unquote debate when it was all being discussed publicly, quote unquote. Joe Manchin stepped up and said, I will veto this, I will filibuster, I won't support it if there's a public option. And so he, quote unquote, killed the public option, but really what he was doing was carrying out what the Obama administration wanted.
Did they ever actually make people get up and talk if they want to filibuster anymore?
No, they don't.
It's just I filibuster. That's a bunch of crap.
Yeah.
They need to make them actually get up and go hoarse, reading stuff.
Right. And actually,
that was the point of the filibuster, is that it wasn't just going to be, oh no, we're not doing that,
And actually, that's part of what. It's funny you mentioned the filibuster because part of the drama, part of the stage show of having the public option removed was Bernie Sanders got up there and quote unquote filibustered for 14 hours. But as we know, you don't have to actually filibuster. You just threaten to filibuster.
Oh, so it was like a show. Okay,
it was a show. He gave a show for 14 hours. He said, I'm standing here for the public option. And he did it for 14 hours and then got a good night's sleep. And the next day came back and voted for the bill without the public option. And, and so this idea that we're being fed, that it's all Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema, they're the ones who are keeping us from getting all these nice things. No, I strongly suspect that the decision was already made, that Joe Biden already had his numbers, and now we're just doing the show. And I base that decision on Obamacare. Because this is exactly what happened, and exactly the same players.
Yeah.
That's the thing. It's Joe Manchin again, and it's it's Joe Biden again, or not Joe Manchin. What's his first name? I can't remember.
I think it is Joe Manchin. These are just all the Joes.
Oh, sheesh. Well, I'm sorry.
Joe Manchin, Biden, whoever he is.
They're giving Joe's a bad name. So anyway, and so what we found out is that he's still got lots of nuclear in there. He's still calling nuclear clean energy. There are some good things in there. There's a 30% rebate federal.
It's a new definition of the word clean in the sense of very, very, very dirty.
Yeah. It's a nuclear clean. It's not just clean. It's radioactively clean. Yeah.
It's so clean, nothing's ever going to grow again.
Right. It's sterile. It's so clean. It's sterilized. Anyway, some good things in the bill. 30% rebate for people who put solar panels on their house, which is nice. And they claim, the White House is claiming that'll mean that the payback on your solar panels is down to 5 years, which means most people can afford it who have houses, except people who have backwards energy policies like Bowling Green,
right,
where they penalize solar panels
just kind of randomly because they can,
right. And that's another big old story. So that's a good thing that's in there. There's a $12,500 electric car tax credit, which for some people who can use a tax credit, that means the electric version is actually going to be cheaper than the internal combustion engine version.
So wait a minute, if this thing passes, will this offset what Bowling Green, or will they just raise it to penalize you more to compensate for the amount you're getting from the government?
It still won't, because the penalty is so high. You still lose money every month.
You just lose less, maybe.
So
unless they raise it.
So overall, the amount you're going to lose is going to be less by about a third.
That's nice.
Yeah. So it's like, instead of losing the full value of your everything you invested in the solar panel, you'll only lose 2/3 of what you invested in your solar panels. So, so that's something. Let's see. So, $12,500 electric car credit. Oh, and that's one thing I wanted to mention on my travels in D.C. and in Pittsburgh, believe it or not, and even in Athens, Ohio, where we stopped. Lots of car chargers, lots of electric car chargers that worked.
Who stops in Athens? It's not on the way to anywhere.
It's on the way home from North Carolina to Bowling Green, Ohio.
Okay, because I've been to Athens, and you had to drive like 100 miles to cornfields and crap.
Yeah. Oh, it's very, very wild and rural. And actually, we figured out that in Athens, people are as close to Charlottesville, West Virginia, as they are to Columbus. So it's almost like another world.
We ran over a
there.
dead skunk at one point, so that was a long trip.
Yeah, lots of critters.
Yes.
But lots and lots of electric car chargers. It was wonderful. Another good thing that they're making that's in there, another interesting thing, is a 300,000 person strong civilian climate corps.
Okay.
So they're gonna hire
Excellent.
just like the old civilian conservation corps back in the Depression. They're going to hire 300,000 people,
which Toledo got a zoo and a library out of.
Oh, right. I know that made like really permanent improvements to the whole United States of America.
I'm thinking of the Work Progress Administration, aren't I?
No, that's part of it.
Is it? Okay.
It was the CCC were the people who built the WPP things.
Right. Okay.
So like they would, you'd get a park and then they'd build the shelters.
They were the workforce for that. Okay.
So that's 300,000 people to help with climate mitigation, building dikes and getting rid of invasive species and doing all kinds of cool ecological stuff if it pans out right. I mean, that's how it sounds right now, and that it sounds wonderful. So fingers are crossed. And they've also got incentives for farmers to do things that'll help mitigate climate change, because we've talked about that before, that farming is actually a huge source of methane and carbon dioxide. And so there's possible benefits there for up to 250,000 farms that will help them lessen their climate impact.
There we go.
So that's some nice stuff. So we'll see what happens, but keep in mind unfortunately, what you're hearing is not the whole story, because if the Democrats are really angry at Joe Manchin for these things,
right,
he would lose his spot as chairman of a whole bunch of different committees, very powerful committees.
Right, because they could take that away from him, but they're not deciding he's the bad guy, but they're not going to punish him.
Yeah, exactly.
When they could.
That's it, exactly. Okay. All right, another Line 3 update. Unfortunately, it does look like the oil is flowing now. And this past week, ABC Nightline did a very nice piece on the whole Line 3 controversy. But I have to point out, it's too late.
Yeah.
It would have been nice if they'd done that back in the summer when 850 people were getting arrested and they were actually trying to stop the pipeline. But that's kind of a media thing with environmentalists. And I've noticed it with the Green Party candidates, too, is no coverage while it's going on. But once you've lost, then there's a big article.
Okay.
And then they say, oh, well, look, we cover it. Here, look.
Yeah.
It looks like the oil is flowing, even though there is still a lawsuit pending, because again, it was done, as we've said before, without proper environmental review. COP26 is coming, which is, we've talked about that before. It's called the Last Best Hope for Humanity.
And that stands for?
Conference of Parties.
There we go.
And this is where they're desperately, and perhaps the name was chosen poorly.
Yeah.
Because this is where all the countries in the world are supposed to come together to fight climate change. and they call it, it's not the Climate Change 26, Climate Change Battle 26. It's the conference, which they've done that. They've 26 years now of getting together.
It's the Keystone COP,
talking about
basically.
Yeah. But that opened today.
He says stop, or I'll say stop again quite a bit.
Right. So that opened today in Scotland. So all kinds of world leaders there, and you'll probably be hearing about it all week on the mainstream media. And
Conference, we should remind people, means people are going to sit down and talk. They're going to sit there and talk, is what it means.
Right. Well, and that...
They're going to sit there and talk about climate change.
And they've been very successful at that. And,
yeah.
And another thing...
At the talking.
Another thing you do at conferences is you schedule the next conference.
Oh, yes.
Which
very
is
important.
Yeah, very important. And so COP26 is this week. Fingers are crossed that we actually get some kind of agreement and some kind of action out of them. Past history is not that optimistic, but if you lose your optimism completely, then you kind of give up, and that's not an option either.
It's a tough, we're trying not to get our hopes up, but we're trying to keep our hopes up, so
yeah, exactly.
It's kind of a tricky emotional balance.
All right, and so just ending on a kind of a fun note, our last story of the day, and there still is time for one comment or call real quick. Scientists have finally admitted that animals have personalities.
Yeah.
I mean, pet owners have known this for millennia.
Pretty much, yeah.
But there was a period in time...
You cannot count on them all acting the same. No, you cannot.
No. There was a period of time that scientists were like, animals can't have personality. Do they even feel pain? There was a debate over whether animals...
They can't say, I feel pain in English, so clearly they don't.
Right, yeah.
Screaming is just something else. I don't know.
Yeah, we give them pencil and paper. They don't write out,
Exactly.
So, but anyway, so that's finally into science, and in fact, they've found personalities not just in like the mammals, the higher, quote unquote, higher orders. Mm-hmm. Insects have individual personalities. So like one bee will be more aggressive than,
right.
You can have your buddy bee, and then there's the bee you avoid, and even earthworms, even really, really what they call primitive animals have their own unique personalities. And so there was this article called Modulation of Ecosystem Services by Animal Personalities. It was by Malcolm L. Hunter. It came out this week in Ecology and Environment, the October issue. And they're saying that they might be able to use animal personalities to improve ecosystem services.
Because you have to account that, all the animals are going to do like the thing you expect, and there's going to be that one weirdo,
Right. Yeah. So
an animal weirdo.
Right, so you can't just say, bees are going to act this way and deer are going to do this, but
except for that one that ruins things for everybody.
Right. That oddball deer that nobody likes to talk to.
Right.
But it is nice to see that science has come along. Science can be taught.
Okay,
I guess
good.
It's
teachable.
Lesson here.
Yeah.
Right.
Good news.
Eventually, given enough time and enough examples, science will go, you know what, animals do have personalities.
Yeah, they do, man.
And just like the rest of us. So, I guess that's pretty much everything I had on there to talk about. Just want to remind people that if you have been moved by anything on the show, you could text that 419-973-5841 number anytime. You don't have to just do it while the show's going. Or you can send us an email to joe@joedemare4agreenfuture.org. That's joedemare4greenfuture.org. Love to hear from you folks, and looking forward to coming back next week and be back to talk with you again. This is Joe DeMar
and Rebecca Wood,
and we are signing off.
I don't want no oil, a spoil in my shoreline. I like fish much better than crud. I like birds and things a-creeping and crawling. Won't trade no more oil for blood. The sun done give us all we need to make this country run. But that black demon oil's got us fussing and fighting